Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And today I have my awesome co-host, Tracy McBurney, with us. And we are we're going to talk about, it should be an interesting show, the non-religious, non-scientific person talking a wee bit about religion and interesting things. All right. So welcome to the show, Trace.
Hello, Laurie.
This should be good.
Yes, it should be good. Anyway, it was kind of wonderful getting here this week, like traveling the journey to get here this week to have this conversation and to want to share this. So it's part of the experience that I've gone through this week. First of all, I give a wave, a nod, a gratitude, appreciation to a gentleman by the name of Gregg Braden, who I've met several times, and he would not remember me for all the tea and china, but that's okay. I'm just one of thousands that shook his hand, got him to sign my books. That would be, just in case anybody's looking that up, Gregg with 2 G's, G-R-E-G-G, Braden. So he was the person that brought this to my attention a long time ago. And it was re-brought to my attention just this week when I needed to remember it. Nice. And when I needed to remember the original experience that I did as my pseudoscientist without a white coat after he told me what he told me.
Okay.
So there I've prefaced all of this. So I step in saying, I don't consider myself to be a religious person. In fact, I think that was very much the intention of my parents as we grew up. They wanted us to appreciate or know God or find God in whatever way we chose to. I think they both felt quite oppressed by the individual religions that they were brought up with. I think they were both quite disillusioned with those, and they just didn't feel like they were going to bring those forward to their children. Now, having said that, my mother would read to us every once in a while some of the cartoon Bible stories that she could find, and she would bring forward the ones that she felt were of bringing forward good value and moral structure, as she would put it. And they were a good story. So that's kind of the extent of it. And then what I would say is my stepping into anything that would be more religious was very much guided by gumdrops, candy, trinkets, and boys. So I ended up in the Christadelphian church with a friend of mine more than a few times at Christmas time, because they would create gumdrop trees, and I loved the concept of going to create gumdrop trees. So I would go there with her. I would go to the United Church for the bazaars and the bake sales and all of the stuff, and the Girl Guides and all of the stuff that was that portion of what I would call the United Church. And then really it was boys. I found myself in the Roman Catholic Church because of a boy. I found myself in the Greek Orthodox Church because of a boy. I found myself in a Jewish synagogue because of a boy. All these boys that I wanted to be around and wanted to be in partnership with in one way, shape, or form or another led me to these places. And short of the fact that I sneezed all the time with the incense that they were using, I was either bored or intrigued or enjoyed whatever it was. Those were my experiences with what I would call religion. And then I sat in one of Gregg Braden's classes. And he was telling us one of these days, because he is the scientist, but he's also the historian. And he has a great desire to bring forward spiritual knowledge to us, in addition to just truth as he sees it in the science world. And the day that I was listening to him this time, one of the things that he was talking about was stepping into one of the monasteries in Tibet that he had the pleasure of going into, because I think he's highly respected there. And he was telling us about the fact that this monastery housed all of these religious, spiritual books from many different places and many different facets of what we would call religion, and they were all in this place.
Neat.
And so he was actually standing, he said one day, in the presence of the 3 books of Adam and Eve that do not appear in the Bible.
Whoa.
He then was able to tell us that there was a version of the Hail Mary prayer that existed before the 14th century that was not part of what we were speaking now. And it was not the wording of what we were speaking now. And he spoke to us about how different the offering was now to what the offering was then. And he went on to tell us many things that day. And I just don't know why. I was curious. Everything for me is energy. Everything to me is like, let me frame this through my kinesthetic body. Let me feel it and experience it through feeling. And so I came home that day or the next day, and I remember just sitting with that concept. You know, just recognizing that words have energy and that energy can be felt, and that I don't think I need to hear the words to feel the words. And so I was experimenting with that concept. Do I really need to hear the words to feel the words? Like, this prayer exists, and therefore it exists in energy. The current one exists. The previous one exists. They all exist in energy. So what if I could just feel the energy of the prayer, of the original prayer, which I've heard. I've heard the original Hail Mary prayer. I've heard people repeat it who needed to repeat it 14 times for some penance or whatever that was. I've heard the original Hail Mary prayer. I've never, obviously, heard the Hail Mary prayer that predated the 14th century.
Right.
Never heard it. And never seen it in writing. But it still energetically exists. And even if it were all burned up, it energetically exists. Just like everything that was created still can energetically exist in time and space. And so I just sat there with that concept. Well, what if? What if, like my right brain what if game again. So here I am here's me, the scientist without a white coat, no stethoscope, no nothing, no test tubes, no nothing. I'm just sitting there without my white coat, just sitting there investigating this concept. What if I could just feel this prayer without necessarily hearing anybody say this prayer, speak this prayer, not see it scroll out in writing? What if I could just feel it because it exists as feeling? And so I started with the original Hail Mary prayer. So it's like, all right, so thank you to the universe, thank you to my guides. If that can just be delivered forward as energy, the energy of that Hail Mary prayer as people would speak it right now, and I could feel an energy starting to descend into my body. And it was an interesting energy. It wasn't it was actually a disrupting a little bit energy. It was I didn't remember it feeling particularly lovely. I don't remember it feeling particularly awful. I just didn't have the warm and fuzzies around this at all. So I was like, okay. Then I asked for the original Hail Mary prayer, if that could descend. The one that I've never seen, the one that most of us have never seen, maybe all of us have never seen. Could I ask that original Hail Mary prayer descend so that I might be able to feel its effect, to feel its magic, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. And it's actually descending even as I say that. Like, it's descending into my room. It will be descending into your room.
Yeah.
And I just ask that be brought in so that I might feel it. So I asked for the first one, the one that we're speaking currently right now. I asked for it to be brought in. And even as I'm telling the story, it was brought in. I didn't see you having any amazing impact from that. It was brought in. And now we have this one. This delicious, prayer.
So we don't know the words. We don't know just the
but just feel it. It is impacting you.
Yeah. It's very calming, very gentle, very
calming, gentle, loving, settling, soothing.
Yes.
Almost like this thin, fine stroking of a little kitty cat. Like, it's just like, really, it's just delicious.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I felt that day. And I went, wow, that's very different. That's freaking really different. And I remember thinking as I was in it, and I was just like, what the fuck were we thinking? Like, what? Who the heck screwed around with this? Whatever they did, whoever did this, whoever changed it to where it is now, they didn't know what the frick they were doing. Or what were they doing? Or what were they trying to take us away from? Like, what were they trying to get us away from? Like, this is beautiful. This actually sorts some things. This actually reorders some things. This actually realigns some things.
Yeah.
This actually grounds some things. This actually frickin' does something. I'm not so sure what the other prayer does, but this does something.
Well, I think as all energy sort of deteriorates, it deteriorated at some point to what it is now, because there's so much conflict and there's so much darkness in the church. And prior to that, it was a pure energy, right? It was the pure truth. And a lot of times they say, if you say it in Latin, like that probably was where it came from. It probably was in Latin, and that the Latin has so much more power than how we translated it into English or whatever it's been translated into many, many religions or many different languages. But it probably, the original one was in Latin, and it's just not been bastardized.
Yeah, well, he spoke about how the words were so different. He spoke about the words, how the words were so different, what was missing from the first prayer to the second. And so even if we put in the Latin, like, right. What do I know? What do I know? Let's experience this right now. If we allowed for the original Hail Mary, not the original, scratch it. I don't want the original right now. We're just getting lost in the original. So now what I'd like the current Hail Mary prayer to descend again, to come in again in Latin. So the original Hail Mary prayer, as it was spoken in Latin, to come in energetically to be with us. Do you feel how different this is?
Not the same.
Like, it's not the same at all.
No.
Like, it's just like, what the frick? Okay, scratch that, move that, delete, back to source, back to source, back to source. I don't want to be with that. It almost felt more disturbing in Latin.
I think it did. It did. As soon as we said it and you said, okay, we're going to bring it in, it was like, what's this?
Yeah, what's this? What's this?
Yeah, yuck.
Oh. So, this is what gets redelivered to me this week. I was working on something personally this week because I'm still having some knee issues. I'm still having some throat issues. So now what I've decided is this throat issue, maybe even this knee issue, because they're not healing simply. So they're part of a 4th level healing, I'm thinking. Meaning it was Dr. Karen, I don't want to say Khan, but it's Can, because I keep hearing her now say her name, Dr. Karen Can, who introduced me first to this concept of stages of healer. Like, people healing at different levels. Like, not everybody's healing at the same level. Not everybody's operating with the same spiritual responsibility to heal as others. So she described it as first level healing, second level healing, third level healing, fourth level healing, and she's now found 1 or 2 people who operate at a 5th level healing place, which she couldn't really describe because this was brand new to her when she brought it forward. So she describes to us a first and second level healing person as kind of young souls where they're healing things for themselves. That's it. It's just about self. They're healing things for themselves. And the person in the second level of healing is got just a little more responsibility of learning than the first. So the first level healing person might have an ache in their stomach, and then they would have to figure out over time, because the ache wasn't leaving, that it was coffee. So they'd have to come to the awareness that it was the coffee they were drinking, not just a particular coffee, but just coffee in general. And so they'd stop drinking coffee, and then all the aches and all the pains went away. And they're like, oh, I can get on with life. I can get on with life. And the second level healing person might have a bit more learning to do. Like they might have to also figure out that this is coffee, but then they'd have to figure out that it's an allergy to coffee. And then they'd have to have this greater awareness that the allergy to coffee wasn't something that they needed to live with, that allergies were things that were blocks. Chinese world understands this. So they just were able to find somebody who could help them to release the blocks that were creating the allergy to coffee, and then they could drink the coffee. And to them, their story is somebody out there has the power to do that, knows how to do that. This isn't about me knowing, but they know. They know, and I feel great that I spiritually know that there are people that know how to do that. And that allergies are not things that you need to live with necessarily, and that they are blocks, and that those blocks can be released. And so that's their new awareness. And now they are a second level healing person that's learned just a little more. And now they go happily on their way, and they can drink coffee because now it's not creating any disharmony for them in their gut. And so they're happy little campers. It's all about them. It's all about them. The world and everything is all about them. And they've healed that, fixed that, and now they're just on their way. Third level healing people are all about family. So they're all about family. So third level healing people will, from the very earliest of age, have a consciousness that's very much about their desire to be helpful to family. Okay. They're wanting to do something more for family. They're wanting to help family. They're wanting to help the marriage of the parents. They're wanting to heal things for the family, make things better for the family. So it's not a consciousness of being all about them. They're all about what's going on with the family. How can I help the family? Right? How can I make things better for this family? How can I make things better for this mother? How can I make things better for this father? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so again, that's where their scope is. And and that's their world. So that's their world. Then you have the fourth level healing people, and the world is much larger than that. So it's not just about family. It's about how can I need to do something more for this world. And the world just isn't the world of the mother in the womb, and the world just isn't the world of family. The world is something much larger than that. And I am here, and I need to do something bigger than that. Right. And so it's maybe sometimes not even about them at all, which is the challenge. For both the third and fourth level healing people, it's not about them at all. It's about here. I'm here to help that. And it's almost like there can be a real kind of disconnection to their own body, disconnection to themselves in body, as they just strive to be better for that bigger thing. Right? And then for third and fourth level healing people, they need to know more. They need to know more than just there's an allergy to coffee. They need more information. So they'll probably be taking some energy medicine classes. They'll probably be stepping into worlds of holistic healing, whatever that is, because they need to know more. They need to know more about how all of this works. And they need to be led, whether it's in a school setting or not, they need to be led to the information. There are blueprints that we can change. Oh, there's this that can happen. Whatever it is, they need to be led to the information that's the right information. Right. to be able to right the misalignment within themselves. And so for a fourth level healing person, it means, sometimes it's certainly not simple. When they're really part of a fourth level healing time, it's not simple because they're not healing something just for them. They're healing something for more than them. And sometimes it's being webbed with 100,000 people. So when these last little things are understood and they're really gotten, and that day for the intended healing is there, then it's shifting for 100,000 people. On the same day, it's shifting for them.
Right.
And so even though they think that they're ready and they have all those pieces in place and they've just done all the work, they're not really ready because they're a fourth level healing person, and they're not really ready until all the hundreds of thousands of people they're webbed to have been made ready.
Okay.
And that is darkness and light coming together to make ready the people that are all in this web. And so hear that, darkness and light coming together to make ready all of the people for this change, before this change can happen for the hundreds of thousands of people that this is going to change for. That's what we're doing now. We've got people on this planet whose healing skills have been switched on. Like, I almost like to see it as like at the arm, there's like this switch. And so the third level healing person that's been switched on, activated. So it's been activated. So they're starting to get this awareness of their capacity to be able to do more for more people. And they're starting to get the awareness of, kind of like being webbed in things. But these third and fourth and fifth level healing people, one of the things that they need to cultivate is patience.
Mm.
Patience, because they're not healing for just themselves. When they're contracted to these things, and that's what I see a lot these days, is that these third, fourth, maybe even fifth level healing pieces, some of them have been agreed upon and contracted before we ever got here. So it's almost like this story. If the grid light of the earth is ever repaired, which has been, then we are contracting to be a part of this. We are contracting to be a part of this tens of thousands of people that will lift this together, and we'll do this together. This difficult, challenging thing, we'll do it together, and we'll lift it together. We'll hold hands together. So it's almost like it's been signed, sealed, and delivered before we ever got here, but those contracts won't be put into play until the grid light of the earth had been repaired.
Interesting.
And that means the third level healing people, fourth level healing people, they'd have the consciousness of the awareness of, being able to shift, like the desire to do more for other people. But the third level healing potential wasn't activated. Wasn't activated because to activate it would mean to activate the grid, to activate their relationship with that grid of people. And none of that was supposed to really occur until the earth could sustain us, till the earth could hold us in a different light, to hold us in a different way. And the earth is holding us in a different way. Holding us as with a 2,000 watt socket plug-in, where we used to have a 25 socket one. So it's all changing.
Right.
So, I don't know. What do I know? Like, I find it very interesting. 14th century, a lot of stuff changed. 14th century, according to Gregg Braden, there was a lot of things that got pulled out, shifted, changed in the spiritual and the religious modeling of that time. What was going on at that time? What was going on with our consciousness? What was going on with the planet? He never mentioned that, but what was going on with the planet? Is the reason why all this stuff got ripped apart and all of this stuff got changed because that was the time frame when the damage happened to the planet? We are always a mirror for the planet.
Right.
We are always mirroring the planet, which is why everything can change and be so much lighter and more amazing now. And it can happen very quickly because we are always the mirror for the planet. And the planet is mirroring us. So this whole idea that we have to live in this damaged place now, and we have to sit in all this damage, and we have to sit and we have to suffer in these ways, this whole concept is moving and leaving. So there I was, back to my little story, there I was in my damaged place this week. There I was in my stubborn, very resistant, really, really, really sitting with some religious dogma. Remember, I was not brought up in a religious family, and yet very, very, very impaled by religious dogma. I could even feel it. This whole, you are the thief. Well, I was accused of being I was rightfully accused of being the thief. I had been caught. The thief of me had been caught. The thief of my little brother had been caught. No, my bigger brother had been caught. We had both been caught by my father, the God, who roared at us and screamed at us and called us thieves and called us little thieves. Whatever he said, deplorable little thieves, like whatever it was, the anger and rage that came down. I mean, he wanted to make sure that we understood that this thing called stealing was something that we shouldn't do, that we should never do, that we'd been incredibly bad about this. And he wanted to make sure we really frickin' got it. And I'll tell you, it was not, I don't think maybe I'd never heard my father roar like that ever until then. But he made an impactful, godlike roar of not just disappointment, just anger, rage, upset, judgment, all coming down on us. And I was deeply changed by that. Deeply changed by that. Very darkened by that. And very justifiably darkened by that. I was the thief. I was the thief. I admitted I was the thief. Scott admitted he was the thief. We both admitted to the God who roared that we were the thieves that had stolen the jujubes. We were those kids. Well, we didn't know, unbeknownst to us, Scott was stealing his little amount when he was stealing his little amount, and I was going in to steal my little amount out of the drawer. And clearly, little hands stole too many little amounts, times two, without talking to each other. It would have been better if we were communicating to each other, because it was enough little hands, two hands, going into the juju bag, that my father was able to understand that somebody had taken the jujubes. And he knows my mother does not eat candy and does not want candy. And the only candy my mother would ever eat were the goodies that were her goodies. And that was in another bag. And we didn't like black licorice, so we didn't steal those.
Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Or we would have stolen those. We came to like black licorice later in our life. So that's a different story.
Well, yeah, because now you got to get your mom's if you couldn't get your dad's. Sorry.
So here we are, having been caught. Our punishment, we were to take our allowance money. We were to walk up the hill. And I remember when we got caught, it was really hot. Because I remember it was really hot when we had to fulfill this punishment. We were going up the hill to go to the corner store, which was like a mile away. And we were to walk to the corner store. We were to spend our allowance on a pencil, get a pencil and a pad of paper. And we were to come back home and we were to write essays on why it was a bad thing to steal. Wow. I was young enough that I had no idea what an essay was.
Sure.
But I wasn't going to ask.
Right.
I knew I had to write something, and I knew it had to be good. And I knew I was trying to change the opinion of my father, whose opinion had darkened tremendously to me. And whatever it was that I was going to write, I needed to be very successful at it because I was dark. So my mother has kept these essays on these pads of paper. And she actually showed them to me one day. Scott was he's 17 months older than I was. So the beginning of his essay started, what is a jube?
Oh, no.
A jube is a gelatinous whatever. He explored the concept of the Jube. Anyway, he went on. It was actually very amusing, his essay, because he actually understood an essay, so he could start from a different turning point. I, however, my one reason for writing this piece of paper, for putting words down on this piece of paper, was to change my father, the God's opinion about me.
Sure.
My essay was a heartfelt, remorseful, guilt-ridden, moral-coded piece of mush. It was all explored all about badness and wrongness and apologies. And I was just like, it was really just somebody really struggling with badness and really struggling with being darkened and really struggling with being held at such a negative judgment by her dad. And it was just a giant moral dilemma on this piece of paper. It was not the playful. Clearly, Scott did not take in all of this the way I did. No. He did not get darkened by this. He just wanted to tell you what a Jube was and whatever else it was in the essay. So I had been brought back to this time. Mm-hmm. And I can't even now remember in this last week that had gone by with my exploration of what's going on with my knee and what's going on with my throat. I don't quite know what led me here, but I got led back here, and I got led back to this, let's call it 6-year-old. And I got led back to this darkened 6-year-old, and I got led back to the badness. I got led back to the wrongness. I got led back to the shame. I got led back to all the energy of rage and anger that came down from my father. I got led to how deeply that was taken into my bubble and how much that changed me and how much that darkened me. And as I'm sitting with that, and I'm just with that going, oh, like just feeling like, wow, that's really sad. Like, that's really sad. Like, that's just yucky. Yeah. How dark that is and how much that just got taken in, how the opinion of that man called my father and the negative opinion, how deeply that could be impacting and how greatly and intensely that was felt. And I sat with that. And I also sat with the concept of how much it had been my life path to change the opinion that man had of me. How much it had been proving myself to this man, proving myself to my father. How much my purpose had been around proving myself to this father. And how disruptive the world had become after my father had passed last July. Almost like that concept of, well, what now? You know, what do I do now? Like, I know he's gone. I know he's gone. I feel that energy. I get this. But it's like, wow, I never succeeded. Like, I first sat in the energy of I never succeeded at changing his opinion of me. He never told me that he was proud of me. He told other people, apparently. Other people have come up and told me, oh, your father has said this about you and said this, but never told me. And even if he had told me, would that have gotten to this child? Right? This child that's sitting there all darkened, all shadowed, all slimed, all disconnected, all discombobulated, all changed into badness. Would it have gotten through to that child?
No.
I'd say not. So this is kind of where I was led. I was led back to this moment that my father and I had shared. I was led back to the destruction in that. I was led back to the disconnection in that. I was led back to all of that. And I sat there with all of that. I thought, okay, so this explains a few things. And then this Hail Mary prayer, then this awareness, then this remembrance. This was like 10 years ago, more than that I sat in that Gregg Braden place. I have not thought about that Hail Mary prayer. I had not thought about that exercise that I did sitting on my couch. Just me wanting to feel the difference between these two prayers, see what he's talking about. Can I feel what he's talking about? Can I be a part of what he's talking about? And I thought to myself, like, as this just comes into my awareness, this Hail Mary prayer. And my girlfriend that I'm talking this all out with, and I was crying about something, she was trying to get me to move. She was trying to get me to change my mind. She was trying to get me to let go of the badness. She was trying to, I was like, and I would not. I was just so stuck in that place. I was not giving up on that concept of I'm bad. I'm bad. I was not giving up on that concept that the only person that's going to change this is the person that imprinted all of this. Like, it's almost like this little child waiting for the father to do something, to repair something, to make something better that couldn't be made better. So it either couldn't be made better, period, because there's just some level of badness, or it can't be made better because the only person that's going to make it better is the father. And the only way that that's going to be made better is if the father changes his opinion of you, and you haven't succeeded at getting his opinion of you changed. You're still a foolish, whatever, thief, whatever. And so the Hail Mary comes in as a suggestion. Just almost like comes in at the top of the screen of my awareness, just floating there like a cloud. And I'm like, oh, okay, I remember that. Okay, I think I've said this before in a call. Choosing, intending, allowing, these are powerful things, powerful choices in mind, even if you don't say them out loud. And so my poor girlfriend, she was really trying, and she's so good at this normally. I was having none of it. There was just such a wall of intention to stay where I was, the little girl staying where she was, maybe waiting for her father to change his mind or repair something or take back words or whatever it was. Unslime, I don't know. But clearly it was no. And then I said yes. And then I just went, okay, I'll let that in. I'll let that in. I'll let that in. I'll let that in. And it comes in. And that Hail Mary prayer energy just comes in. And I can feel it coming in. And I can feel its beautiful, gentle impact, which isn't really an impact. It's just doing what it's doing, deliciously doing what it's doing. And maybe it's a minute later, 2 minutes later. It wasn't long. I could see in my mind's eye, and I don't see pictures so much in my mind's eye, but I could see in my mind's eye almost like a little girl starting to smile, like just starting a little smile. And then the little smile starts to get a little bigger. And then it almost like there's this light, there's this glint of light that's coming back into her eyes. And then this little child's kind of looking down and kind of going, oh, my light. Oh, my light. My light, my light, my light's still here. My light's still here. My light's still with me. It's still with me. So even though this happened, even though I was the thief, even though I did this bad thing, even though I'm just so bad, this light's still with me. It's still with me. And then it was just like more awareness, and the light just starts to grow. And it feels like it grows because the darkness just starts to lift. Like it's not like the light's getting in. It's just like the light's the light. Her light's the light, but it's the darkness, it's the negativity, it's those things that are starting to lift. And then it was just like this, almost like this gentle kind of knowing, you know, you can be on your way now. You can be on your way now. It was almost like, without words. It was like there were no words, and yet I knew, yes, you've done this thing. And it was almost like there were no words, but it's like it was lifting any idea that I was going to hell. It was lifting any religious dogma. It was just lifting all of it. It's like, yes, you did that. Yes, you did that. Yes, you experienced that. No words, but it was just like you just knew. And it's okay. It's okay. And it's like, and it was almost like I was just free. I was free to be on my way now. I was free. I was free, and I was good. I was good, and it was good. It was good, and it was okay. And it was good. My light was here. My light was with me. He hadn't destroyed it. My father had not destroyed my light. My choice to steal the jujubes had not destroyed my light. It had not ruined my life. This event had not ruined my life. It had not ruined my light. It had not ruined, my father had not ruined it. Nothing had ruined it. It was there. It was still there. And I was still me. Me that is connected to that light. I was still me. And it's funny, as I would talk about the men in my life, my father, uncles, the men in my life, really the men in my life, the lesson being taught through the men in my life, good people, really good people can do some really bad things.
Yeah.
And then I go back to the 6-year-old, really good children with so much light and connection to light can do some really bad things. Or what an adult would think was a really bad thing. And it doesn't destroy my potential or their potential to know their own light, to be with their own light. And it doesn't destroy my potential to be with my own light and recognize still the light of them. And recognize there's still light within them.
Yeah.
So that Hail Mary prayer was just amazing. And I was so happy. I got to tell you, Laurie, I was so happy that I'd done that investigative reporting all those years ago, because I don't think that would have been the time to do it then.
Right.
I needed to have known that already. That's the way I feel. It would have been, oh, well, wait a minute. Let me just stop this Hail Mary prayer. Oh, yeah, that Gregg Braden. Yeah, he said that to me. Oh, yeah, let me just say yes to that and bring that in. I'm not so sure I would have done that. Maybe I would have, maybe I wouldn't have. But I knew when I was saying yes to it, that wasn't harmful. I knew that when I was saying yes to it, that it was soft and gentle and lovely and would not in any way be harmful, and that it would only be helpful to my girlfriend. That's the way I thought it. Only helpful to my girlfriend who's trying so hard to get me out of this stubborn place. It would be only helpful to her and make it easier for her to try and help me. And so it's interesting when you see the stubbornness, your own stubbornness, your willingness to shift your own stubbornness because you can recognize how much it's hurting or harming or creating distress for another. Like my girlfriend already has so much stress in her life, and here I am being so stubbornly not moving this when I've asked for help and when I'm asking for her insight. So I really honestly, I'm bringing that Hail Mary in to be helpful to her. I never really envisioned or even thought that Hail Mary prayer was the only thing I really needed to bring in to have this whole thing just shift. Yeah, anyways, very, very cool.
Very. Yeah. It's weird how we get, something similar happened to me in that I figured something out with my own body that was like, after I figured it out, I was like, how could you have forgotten? And I was like, it just wasn't something I was thinking about. So when it pops into your head and it's like, huh. Right? It's like, wow, that's, yeah. So, yeah, I can see how when we're just not, I don't know. In your case, you were thinking about someone else, which is lovely.
It always seems to be the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always seems to be the way.
Yeah.
I remember making a choice to quit smoking after I walked in the vortex, and I was creating such distress for my family because I was having all these crazy shamanic things go on in my world. And it was very distressing. It was very distressing to go through all of that change and craziness. And I remember thinking one day, because I'd woken, my clairaudient gift was waking up, and it was being interfered with, and during that time. And I remember getting up or gently falling asleep. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. I could hear in one ear, your father's dying of a heart attack. Call now. And I'm calling my parents at like 3 o'clock in the morning to say, hey, to wake my mom up, hopefully, because my dad's having a heart attack right beside her. And, she needs to wake up. The phone would wake them both up. And of course, my father wasn't having a heart attack, and everything was fine. And I woke them out of a sound sleep. But I'll tell you, it was crystal clear in my ear that that's what was going on. Like somebody was standing right beside me talking. And it happened for 3 nights in a row.
Oh.
And by the third night, I went, I am not waking them up again. I don't know what's happening. But to me, it felt like I'm going insane. Like this is a real voice. It sounds crystal clear real. But I'm not going to act on this again because my parents are just going to think I'm crazy. And I've already called them, woken them up twice. They were actually quite concerned about me. And I was concerned about me is my point. I was concerned about me.
Right.
There were lots of weird things that were going on at that time after I walked in the vortex. Like lots of things going on with my eyes, doorways that were disappearing, and doorways and windows that were elongating and turning sideways. It was like I was in the Matrix. It was the most bizarre time in my life. And very troubling, and didn't have a lot of people you could talk to about it. And I didn't have a lot of context for it either, except this one book that I had found just before I walked in that vortex that talked about, what happens to a man, because it was only men who were to walk in these places.
Oh.
And I found this book. It was Tom Harper's book. And Tom Harper was at that time quite a well-known journalist for the Toronto Star, I believe, and he'd written this book. And I don't know if I still have the book. I'm not doing it as a service because I can't remember the title of the book. But in one of the chapters, he was writing about vortexes. He was writing about walking in vortexes, and he was talking about the traditions, like the kind of the Aboriginal traditions. It was men who did this. The vortexes on the earth, the place where the electromagnetic energy is coming up stronger. It was a place where it was considered a male initiation place from boy to manhood. And I'm reading this section of his book. And it's interesting how these things come into our awareness, right? The Omega Center was right down the street from where I was working. So it was easy to get your hands on some of these spiritual things. And I was kind of becoming a little interested. So I had this book and I'm reading this section, and I remember saying or seeing, this is for men, boys to men. And I remember saying, well, fuck that shit. Because this woman was talking to me about the fact that there were these 4 vortexes in Halton Hills and we should go find them. Of course, the book's saying, well, it's only men. It's like, fuck that shit. Let's go. And we did. We found one of them, and we knew where another one was, and we didn't go looking, but we found one. We walked in it. I walked in it with 2 gentlemen, not her, and 2 gentlemen who were friends of mine from the restaurant that I was working in. And they didn't have the experience that I had. They had a nothing experience. I'm walking with them. They're flagging me on 2 sides. I'm walking like I'm on marshmallows. I'm literally saying to these 2 men, do you feel like you're walking on marshmallows? I don't even feel like I'm touching the ground. I feel like I'm walking on marshmallows. They're like, no, we're just walking on the ground. Oh, well, that's not my experience. I'm walking on marshmallows. And then I come out of this place that is the ground, the place that we would recognize as the vortex kind of energy coming up. And I remember standing out where the parking lot was, or where we parked our car. And I said to one of them, I think I've done something really bad. And they said, why? And I said, because I can feel my brain sparking in my head. And they were looking at me. Really, all of that happened for you, walking on marshmallows and a brain sparking in your head? Well, we're just walking in this forest with you. And then that night, and for the following 2 months, I had the craziest experiences. Mm-hmm. What this Tom Harper would speak about as being kind of like if you don't die in the vortex, then, you come out of the vortex, and it's a whole initiation process, and the coyotes kind of ripping at you at night and ripping away all the skin and all this stuff that and it's exactly the kind of stuff that it felt was going on. He didn't talk about doorways going sideways and all sorts of craziness, but that's exactly what was my experience. Anyway, I say that to you because I quit smoking at that time. And I quit smoking at that time, and I was quite a nicely well ensconced behavior habit addicted smoker. Okay. And working at the restaurant, and I remember the last pack of cigarettes I ever bought was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I was managing the restaurant at that time, and my girlfriend and I were living together. And I left a previous relationship at that time, and I bought my last pack of cigarettes, and she said, hey, I thought you said you were going to quit smoking in the morning. I said, I am. Bought my last pack of cigarettes at like midnight, 12:30, whatever. And I think I had gone through 10 cigarettes between that time of 12:30 and the time that I was actually heading off to bed, 3 o'clock or something in the morning. Because with the restaurant closing and stuff, you never got home before about 3:30 counting money anyway. So the next morning I got up and I'm looking at the ashtray, looking at the sky. I have no relationship with God, like no relationship with God. And I'm literally looking at the sky and I'm saying, okay, God, I have no relationship with you that I can even conceive of, really. And yet, Mr. Reader, this was my father's business partner who I'd consulted a bit about what was going on in my world, because he had told me once that he was married to a witch. Oh. And in telling me that he was married to a witch, he felt like a good person to talk to about rooms going sideways and the stuff that was going on. So I got in touch with him, and he became very helpful to me during that time, actually incredibly helpful. And so I was just parroting his words. Mr. Reader tells me that when things are too big for you, that you, God, will be there. And this thing called smoking is too big for me. I need your help. And as soon as I said that, and I said it out loud in my room, this energy comes down. It comes down from the top of my head, coming all the way down my body. I would call it angel tingles, all the way down to the ground. I'll tell you, Laurie, I was a non-smoker from that moment. Never smoked another cigarette, never wanted another cigarette. I literally had the operating system for non-smoker installed. Like, it was just the wildest experience. People were blowing smoke in my face. Everybody in the restaurant smoked. Everybody around me smoked. I didn't care. I had no cravings for it. I had nothing. I was just a non-smoker. And sometimes I just look and go, I used to do that. I didn't used to do that. Did I do that? I didn't do that. Why would I have done that? It was a bizarre experience. I quit smoking for my parents. I did that for them. That would be my story. I wanted to show them that I was still in control. I wanted to show them that I wasn't insane. I wanted to show them that I was good, that I was fine, that everything was going to be okay. But at the end of the day, I wanted to show myself that. Like, I was actually deeply afraid that I was not okay, that I was not okay. And whatever this was that I was dabbling in was not okay. And that it might be doing me harm and not good. And so I think ultimately, although my story is I'm going to quit smoking for them so that they'll calm down and they'll think that I'm on a good path, and there I am, the non-smoker. So why would they be concerned about me if I'm no longer smoking cigarettes? How good is that? But I honestly think it was really for me.
Right.
So, but of course, the story's always going to be, I do this for you.
Interesting.
Because that's a 4th level healing person mentality. That's a 3rd level healing person mentality. I do this for you, not me. If I take care of myself, I take care of myself for you, not because it's a good thing for me. So anyway, that I didn't know we were going to all those places today. And I don't know if I've ever told that story before, but anyway.
That's a good one.
There was my first connection with God. And it turned out to be lovely, actually. And it turned out to be, and I haven't smoked a cigarette since.
Wow.
Nor have I wanted one. Yeah, so that was pretty profound.
Very.
I love it. So I'm sorry, but I'm looking at your cat.
I know.
Just as you were doing that, you're kind of in your kind of dreamy state. So is your cat. And your cat's tilting one way, you're tilting the other way. It's so cute to look at you. It's like they're both in kind of this meditative state.
Well, you said something about angel tingles, and I looked over and I could see her and like, yeah, because her name's Angel. But yeah.
Anyway, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there we are. That's what I wanted to say today. The original Hail Mary prayer. And what a gift that is to humanity.
Yeah. All right. Well, I kind of want to know what the words are, but I know it's not important. I know it's not important. All right. Well, you've been listening to News of the Heart. We've been getting the heart of what matters with Tracy McBurney, and I don't know, maybe calling this Holy Hail Mary. All right. Well, we'll be back next month. Thank you so much, Tracy.
All right. Love you. Talk to you soon.